Hey 3DFers, here is your creation of an AOPass, the technical side of the exercise. And again, this is not an overly complicated process, but you do have to make sure you hit all the steps in order to make it work. Now the first thing we need to do is we have to enable the Arnold rendering engine, because by default that's not turned on. So what we want to do is go to Window, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager. And when the plugin manager opens up, we're going to scroll down to a pretty good way down, and you're going to come across the M2A bundle, MTOA bundle, and that's the Maya to Arnold bundle. So what we want to do is turn this on. And if you don't see the Maya to Arnold bundle as an option, what you're going to have to do is download Maya again from the website. Please use the link that I gave you guys and download it again, and it will have that Maya bundle in there. So make sure you've got that. And again, you just have to get loaded and then hit refresh. So now that's loaded up and ready to go. And you'll know it's good to go because now all of a sudden it says Arnold up here as an option, even on your modeling menu set there, sort of a rendering component. All right, and then what we're going to want to do is we're going to turn on the Arnold because we sort of activated it, but we want to go to Windows, Rendering Editor, Render Settings. And here's where we're going to tell Maya to use Arnold as its rendering engine because by default it goes to software when you look at the settings window. So we want to set it to Arnold. Okay, so now Maya is ready to use what we want it to in terms of the creation of this AOPass. All right, now for the activity, you'll see we gave you a file to download, and you'll see that in the scenes folder there's a file in there for you to work with. So once you've downloaded that from FSO, you want to be sure to set your project to it. So I'm going to go to File, Set Project, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and then there's that AO project. And that just lets Maya know what it is you're working on and where it is. So now that that's set, we're going to go to File, Open Scene, and open the Ambient Occlusion project. No need to save any of that stuff, and yes, of course, everything is okay. Now you'll notice that this object is made of several pieces, and the reason we gave you this object is twofold. Number one, there's a lot of nooks and crannies in it, so we'll get some good AOPass information or the recording of shadow information, which is nice. But it's also an object that is made of many pieces, and we want to make sure that when you do your AOPass for the object that you select all of the pieces if you have an object that is made of many pieces, and you want to make sure to combine the object. So that's critically important that you do that in this process in order to make this work. So I'm going to combine it so it's now viewing it as one thing, not many things, even though it was made of several different pieces. Now that we've got that set up, now it is time to apply that special light-sensitive material. So I'm going to go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, because that's where materials live. And you'll notice that there's a section in here called Arnold now. I'm going to pull this up a little bit so it's easier to see. Arnold. And then there's a category called Shader. And if we click on that, you'll see that there's an Ambient Occlusion material. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to create this special material. And it won't work unless you use this material. And then what we want to do is select this object and assign to selection. So now this object is made of this material. And of course you can drag and drop if you want to. That also works. But now this object is made of this special light sensitive material. Now with that in place, now we're going to go to the Arnold category, and we're going to go to Utilities, and we're going to go Render Selection to Texture. So of course I've got to select it, but I want to render out a physical image of where the shadows are on this object. So it's going to render selection to a texture. So I run that. You can set the resolution to 512, that's fine. 1024, also good. What we're talking about with resolution there is the quality of the image, how clean and neat the shadowing looks. 1024 is a bigger resolution, therefore the shadow information will be finer in terms of how it appears on the object. A lower resolution, less so, but 512 is pretty good. This samples here has to do with, again, the quality and the cleanness of that render. So 3 is good for that as well. What we do have to tell it is where to send the texture. So what we want to do is click on these dots here and tell Maya to put it into our source images folder. Because remember, that's where Maya goes to find texture information. So why not create the texture and just send it there? So I choose that. So now it knows where to send the picture it's about to make. And then I hit render. And we have to wait a little bit while that picture is being created. And again, not too long for 512. 1024 will take a little bit longer. Obviously, as resolution goes up, the length of time is longer. And if I go to my folder for the AO project and I go to my source images folder, you'll see there's a file in there called EXR, and that's the texture information that has been turned into a texture. So what we're going to do now is plug that texture into our geometry, and this works just like we've been doing all along. We're going to create a new material and apply that texture to the color channel and then apply it to the object. So just like we did before. Window, rendering editor's Hypershade. Hypershade opens up for us. We need to now make a new material. We don't want it to be made of this anymore. We want it to be made of a new material. So we make a new Lambert. And of course, always a good idea to name as you go. Pepper Mill material. And of course, we go to the color channel all the way to the end of the checker box. Click on that. And then we're going to go to the file node because we want to plug a picture in. So we choose that. And again, it doesn't know what it's made of yet because we have to tell it. So we go to the yellow folder under File Attributes. We go to the yellow folder and navigate to where that picture is. So I click on it, and of course it goes right to my AO project because I set my project. It went right to my Source Images folder, and then there's my picture that I created, and you can see what it looks like there. So I select it and I hit Open. And so now the material has that as a color. So when I come into my Hypershade, which I closed, Windows, Rendering Editor, Hypershade, you'll see in my Hypershade, there's my material. And you'll see it looks kind of funny, and I'll show you what happened. And it's not a big deal, but it looks like it's somewhat transparent, right? So what I'm going to do, again, I can drag and drop it, or I can select the object, hold down the right mouse button, assign to selection. Either is fine, but that puts it on there. Now, we can't really see anything yet until we press 6. So we go to textured mode. And you'll notice that the object looks like it's like you can see through it a little bit in places. And that is because when we connected the texture, it also connected an element of transparency. And but that's okay, that's fine, it's not a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the attribute editor. And when you open that up, when I select the object, it's going to tell me all about the different parts of this object. That's some history there. There's some parts of it. But one of the things that this thing is made of is the peppermill material. So if I click on that tab, I am now in the material for that object. I could have also gone to the Hypershade to get there, but either is fine. And you'll see in the color channel, I've got something plugged in, and that's the texture. But in the transparency, something's plugged in. And that's what's giving us that sort of somewhat transparent look to my geometry. You know, why is that happening? Well, so what I'm going to do is I want to break that connection. So I'm going to go to the word transparency and hold down my right mouse button. And it will, there we go, hold down my right mouse button and you'll see break connection. And what that's going to do is break that connection so nothing is connected there anymore. And you see it no longer looks transparent. It only has the color information in there. So now when I look at my object, I've got this really cool shading that's like built right in. And again, just as you can see the difference between the things, here's my object without the shading on it, without that cool texture that accentuates detail, and here it is with that on there. And you can see that nice shading that comes in. It looks much better than the default geometry, which is sort of not very exciting. But when you press 6 and you go into textured mode, it really makes your model pop out. Looks super nice. One thing you may need to do is you'll notice, oh no, wait, there's a bit of a seam in there. And remember, we talked about seams, and they're not the end of the world. You just have to fix them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my UV editor, and I'm going to find the piece in question that's got the issue. For example, if I select this edge here, because this is where I see my texture seam, and then I see, oh yeah, it's this edge right here. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to UV mode, and I'm going to grab all of the UVs on this edge, all of them, and then just using my move tool, I'm just going to move them in a tiny bit so that they're not in that gray area over there. Oop, looks like I missed somebody. Get that guy too. They're not over in the gray area, they're in the all white area. Alright, so that's going to eliminate the seam on that side. So now all I have to do is go to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going to grab all the UVs over here, and I'm going to put them together, selecting these UVs. I got everybody. And then just tuck them in a little bit, and you'll see once it all gets into the white area, nice and clean, and the seam is gone. So you just have to do that for the other parts as well. Alrighty, and then you can see it looks lovely now. So just do that, and you'll be all set. Again, that is the ambient occlusion process, and not really very time-taking. Honestly, it'll take you probably just about as long as it took me to do it. So good luck. And I can't wait to see your UV, your AOpass for your geometry. Again, you can use the object that we gave you, and the reason I gave you one is because it's made of many parts, as are many of the things that you made. If you want, you can UV map your jar, if you wish, that you've done the UV layout for, but realize that that is an object that is made of one piece of geometry, and therefore you wouldn't need to combine it before creating that ambient occlusion pass. So again, I hope you really loved the creation of the ambient occlusion pass. It's super easy, but it makes your models look great. So play with this, and I can't wait to see your AOpass for your geometry.